In Italy, there are four distinct and powerful criminal empires. In Sicily, you have the Cosa Nostra, who initially created, shaped and spread the legendary image of the Mafia and once held the Italian state in a deadly embrace. In Naples, you have the sprawling, chaotic Camorra, an organization best described as a hydra that poisons the earth for profit. In Apulia, the Sacra Unita reigns, who are the gatekeepers to a shadow economy flowing from the Balkans. And finally, there is the one from the mountains of Calabria, the impenetrable and most powerful of them all, Ndrangheta. These four criminal empires don't just break the law, they have enough financial firepower to distort entire markets, infiltrate legitimate businesses, and bring whole sectors of the economy to their knees. The Ndrangheta, for example, is estimated to have annual revenues surpassing 53 billion euros. But to understand the Italian Mafia, you'll have to look at their extremely clever geopolitical plays. And each of these four Italian mobs do geopolitics slightly differently. That will all be revealed throughout this video, so let me break down these four criminal empires one by one. Starting with the one a lot of you probably know thanks to Hollywood, the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, which means our thing. Think of them as the politicians. Their power comes from a formal hierarchical structure. See, the island of Sicily is divided into territories controlled by families, all of which is overseen by a board of directors called the Commission or Cupola. Their geopolitical signature has always been getting into bed with power. For decades, they maintained a deep alliance with Italy's ruling political party, trading massive blocks of votes for political protection and a steady stream of lucrative government contracts, especially in construction. But while the Cosa Nostra was playing the local political game, another group was quietly building a global empire. Meet the Ndrangheta. If Cosa Nostra are the politicians, the Ndrangheta are the CEOs. They are now, without a doubt, the most powerful and financially formidable criminal organization on the planet. And their secret is their structure. A structure I'll reveal in just a moment, but first, you may know that in some of my videos, I've mentioned that I'm Danish, but a little while ago I wanted to be 100% sure, so I partnered with MyHeritage to do a DNA test, the sponsors of this video. Right now, they're running a special promotion where you can get your own DNA kit for just $29, which is way cheaper than any other company, and the best price ever. They simply sent me a box in the mail with a kit where I had to put a cotton swab in my mouth for around a minute, put it in a vial and send it back to them. With this DNA, they were able to break down my origins across 42 different ethnicities and over 2,000 geographic regions. A few weeks later, I got results in my email, and here it is. As expected, I'm mostly Danish, but surprisingly I have some DNA from Sweden and the Netherlands. I did know about the German DNA, but then some small percentages from Eastern Europe, England and Norway are also kind of surprising to me. There's also a DNA match tool where you can find lost relatives. Something important to mention here is that MyHeritage is fully committed to your privacy. They have it in their policy to never sell or license your genetic data, which is really reassuring when you're doing something like this. So if you're curious about your own story, click the link in the description or scan the QR code that you see somewhere on screen and use my code OBF to get your DNA kit for just $29. Thanks again to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video. Okay, now back to the Ndrangheta and why their structure is so different and so powerful. See, it's a decentralized network of around 100 clans called Ndrina, which are almost exclusively on blood family relationships. Their strength is absolute trust. Since it's a literal family business, it's nearly impossible for police to infiltrate them. This structure has allowed them to become a global logistics conglomerate, whose main product is cocaine, and they currently control 80% of the cocaine supply in Europe. Then we have the oldest and most chaotic of the groups, the Neapolitan Camorra, best described as the street fighters. Unlike the other two, the Camorra doesn't have any central leadership. It's a horizontal, fragmented collection of hundreds of rival clans that control neighborhoods and economic sectors in and around Naples. This leads to constant, brutal turf wars. Although I did find this article when I was editing this video in my further research of this topic that says that the Mafia is actually working together now, and the turf wars have kind of ended, at least for now. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to the video. Their signature is the parasitic exploitation of a dense urban economy. They control everything from smuggling at the port to the high fashion counterfeit industry, and most infamously the region's waste management. See, they get paid by industries all over Europe to illegally dump toxic waste, creating a devastating environmental crisis in what's now called the Land of Fires. In 1992, an ex-Camorra boss confessed to investigators, and I quote, "I don't deal with drugs anymore. Now I have another business. It pays more and the risk is less. It's called garbage. For us, garbage is gold." And he's right. In 2013 alone, the illegal dumping of garbage and hazardous waste brought in over 16 billion euros for Italy's organized crime groups. And finally, the new kid on the block, the Sacra Corona Unita, or the United Sacred Crown. The gatekeepers. Formed in a prison in 1983, their geopolitical signature comes directly from the geography of the region they're from. Located on the heel of Italy, Apulia is naturally the strategic bridge to the east. They've leveraged this position to become masters of the Adriatic Sea, forming powerful alliances with Albanian and other Balkan crime groups to smuggle drugs, weapons and people from Eastern Europe into the rest of the EU. These crime groups run short night runs across the Strait of Otranto in fast boats and regular-looking leisure craft, landing near Otranto, Brindisi and Santa Maria de Luzzal, beaches you have to pay the SCU to use. If you don't, they shut you down immediately. In the 90s, it was mostly cigarettes that traveled through these routes, but after the crackdowns, the same lanes shifted to Albanian weed, Balkan route heroin, weapons, and people. So there you have it, 4 families, 4 unique business models. They're all interesting and intricate, but one has by far been the most successful, and that is of course the Ndrangheta. With their corporate, globalized approach, they've built an international empire on a scale the world has never seen before. An empire that for the most part stands on a single product. See, as we now know, the engine of the modern mafia's wealth and power is the international narcotics trade, and the Ndrangheta built their global empire on the back of cocaine, as I mentioned earlier. The Ndrangheta's genius, however, was to do what any smart legal corporation does and cut out the middleman. They didn't want to buy from a long chain of suppliers, so they sent their own people to South America and established direct business-to-business relationships with the producing cartels, quickly becoming trusted partners, enabling them to negotiate bulk prices at the source. But that's just the beginning, because they also managed the entire supply chain from South America. They arranged for transatlantic shipment, often using West African countries such as Guinea-Bissau, Guinea and Sierra Leone, nations with weak governance, porous borders and high levels of corruption, as massive storage and transit hubs, as well as Caribbean islands like the Dominican Republic, Trinidad and Jamaica, which provide convenient mid-Atlantic staging points, to eventually end up at the final destination, which is of course Europe, through the main container ports. But one port stands out from the rest. This is the port of Gioia Tauro, Ndrangheta's crown jewel. As one of the biggest transshipment hubs in the Mediterranean, it's the perfect nexus for their global operations. And their method is brilliant in its simplicity. It's called the rip-off technique. Let me explain. They don't need to own the ships or the shipping companies. They just need to own a few key people along the supply chain. A corrupt worker in a South American port will open a legitimate sealed container bound for Europe, place a shipment of cocaine inside, and reseal it. The container number is then communicated to a counterpart who simply retrieves the drugs upon arrival. This method is cheaper, harder to detect, and spreads the risk across the vast, overwhelming flow of legitimate global commerce. It's a system that turns the lifeblood of our global economy into a delivery service for the world's most powerful criminal enterprise. Sure, authorities do catch some of these shipments, but their advantage is scale. There's simply no way the authorities will catch it all. Now, getting the drugs in is only half the battle, as the byproduct of this monopolistic control of moving cocaine into Europe is cash. Mountains and mountains of cash that they need to launder somehow. This is the final and most critical part of the mafia's business model: sophisticated industrial scale money laundering. The process always follows 3 stages. Step 1 is placement, and this is also the riskiest part: getting the physical cash into the financial system. They do this by mixing it with the daily receipts of a legitimate cash-intensive front business they own, like a restaurant, a bar, or a construction company. The dirty money gets commingled with clean money and deposited into a bank account. The dirty clothes are now in the machine. Step 2 is layering. This is the wash cycle. The goal is to obscure the money's origin through a dizzying series of complex financial transactions. The money is wired between dozens of bank accounts and shell companies in different countries, converted into different currencies and used to buy and sell assets. The whole point is to create a paper trail so convoluted that no investigator could ever hope to follow it back to its source. The final step is integration. The now clean money is reintroduced into the legitimate economy. It can be used to buy real estate, invest in the stock market, or provide loans to other businesses. This is how the Mafia wages economic warfare. See, during an economic crisis, when a legitimate hotel or construction firm is about to go bankrupt and can't get a loan from a bank, who has billions in cash ready to buy it for pennies on the dollar? They do. This is how they colonize entire sectors of the legal economy. Construction, waste management, tourism, agriculture, they got it all. They hollow out free market competition from the inside, replacing it with a criminal monopoly that makes them even richer and more powerful. It's a slow-motion corporate takeover of Europe funded by cocaine. But since there are 4 main mafias in Italy, you might be wondering why the Ndrangheta ended up becoming the most powerful. Especially considering the Sicilian mafia, Cosa Nostra, is the oldest and was in fact the most powerful in the 1980s. So what happened? Well, in the 1980s, the Italian state decided it was time to fight back against the powerful Sicilian Cosa Nostra, launching an all-out war against them. What followed was the most significant offensive ever launched against organized crime. Enter the Maxi trial. From 1986 to 1987, in this specially constructed fortified bunker courthouse in Palermo, the Italian state put the entire leadership of the Sicilian Cosa Nostra on trial at once. 475 mafiosi, meaning members of the Mafia, were indicted, resulting in 338 convictions and thousands of years in prison sentences. The state had finally broken the back of the Sicilian Mafia, but in doing so, it created a power vacuum on the global stage, and a new beast was waiting in the wings to take its place. The very thing that made the Cosa Nostra so powerful, its centralized and hierarchical structure, was also its fatal weakness. Once the informant Tommaso Buscetta gave the state the organizational chart, they knew exactly which heads to target. By decapitating the leadership, they could cripple the entire organization. And it worked. But the crackdown on the centralized Cosa Nostra created the perfect opening for the decentralized, family-based Ndrangheta to take over the global market. Because they were a network, not a pyramid. Their power was spread across 100 different blood family clans. Cutting off one head just meant another family was ready to step up and take its place. They were more resilient, more adaptive, and more global than the Sicilians had ever been. And this is why the Mafia endures. It's a constantly evolving threat that adapts to the world around it. The evolution from the rigid Cosa Nostra to the flexible Ndrangheta actually mirrors the evolution of modern corporations from old school hierarchies to agile 21st century networks. But yeah, that is the Italian Mafia. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave a like down below and also subscribe to the channel. And lastly, thanks to MyHeritage for sponsoring this video. They are running a special promotion right now where you can get this DNA kit for just $29. So click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen and use my code OBF at checkout to get this DNA kit for just $29. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.